Hello and welcome, Pokemon fans. There are those who call me Bardbreaker, and it's time for another Pokemon Challenge run. Last week, we successfully played through Pokemon with just a Love Disc, and that was actually a nice follow-up from the previous run where we just used Magmar. But after a few solo runs in a row, let's go back to another multi-Pokemon run this week. Today we're going to ask and answer the question, can I beat Pokemon Fire Red using a team of Pokemon that are only using attacks of 25 base power or less? So let me give you guys a quick rundown of Pokemon attacks and their base power, and then you'll kind of get an idea of how we're doing this run. In Pokemon games, there are exactly 476 damage-dealing moves that have varying base powers of 10 all the way up to 250. Since we're sticking to base power 25 or less, we're using only the bottom 10% weakest moves in the game. For anyone new to Pokemon, it's worth noting that base power is not the same as damage. A 20 base power move does not inflict 20 damage. Generally speaking, with only two exceptions out of those 476, those two moves incidentally being Dragon Rage and Sonic Boom, attacks do not deal sets amount of damage. Rather, Pokemon attacks use this formula on screen to determine their damage output. So while you can see that base power does play a large part in it, it is but one of many factors. Notably, this modifier on the end of the formula is in and of itself a formula, and part of that uses an element of partial RNG. So generally speaking, that's a long way of saying that no two attacks are guaranteed to have the same identical damage output. This means that you might inflict slightly more or slightly less damage from one attack to the next. Generally speaking, you'll hear Pokemon runners like myself refer to this as a damage range. Your moves will also naturally get stronger based on your level and the stats you accumulate through your EVs. This is why your Tackle attack will do more damage at level 50 than it did at level 5. But even as we level, a weak move is still a weak move. And that's what we're focusing on today, the weakest of attacks. Using moves of only 25 base power or less is really going to limit the amount of damage that we can inflict. It's also going to restrict our type coverages by quite a bit, as there are only so many moves we can choose at this low power. But at this point though, I always like to remind you fine folks that I write my script as I go with the challenge, so at this point I haven't started playing the run yet. Everyone take your guesses down below to please the almighty algorithm, god of the YouTube algorithm, and let me know if you think I can do it or not. I'm gonna say that we probably can, but we may need to do some extreme leveling to get through this. Hopefully with all the grinding that we'll be needing though, we can at least find a shiny, that'd be nice. In any case guys, before we get started, let me take a brief rundown of the rules and we'll dive right in. As far as Pokemon are concerned, I can catch and use whatever Pokemon I want, provided they have access to at least one move with 25 base power or less. Since this would be an impossible challenge with just one Pokemon, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to use multiple Pokemon. I'll also need the standard utility Pokemon for HMs, but I won't be allowed to use those Pokemon in battle if they can't learn a 25 base power or less attack. Saying of using those attacks, some of the Pokemon we'll be catching won't automatically have those moves. So for the purposes of leveling and grinding, which will be necessary to get our Pokemon to those levels, I'll be allowed to use whatever moves I want in optional battles only. In any mandatory battle though, I will only be allowed to progress using the required weak moves. I also will not be using any items in battle. Held items and items outside of battle will be allowed though. And lastly, the usual boilerplate response of I won't be using any cheats, glitches, or exploits, aside from modifying our starter so that we can do this run. Let's do it. So we start the run off by being rescued from a small patch of grass by the local wildlife expert and forced into enslaving small animals. Well, okay, in this case maybe not so small, as I've used the Universal Pokemon Randomizer to replace Bulbasaur with Hariyama so we can do the entire run with it. I've done this because Hariyama learns Arm Thrust at level 1, which is a base power move of 15 that hits for between 2 to 5 turns each time. Each independent hit hits with a base power of 15, it's just a move that happens to hit more than once at a time. I think we're covered under the rules, but feel free to yell at me in the comments if you really want to, we can debate this if you like. This also means that eventually we'll be facing off against a Charizard by the end of this thing, which is of course going to resist our Arm Thrust, so it'll have the type advantage against what will probably be our primary Pokemon for the run. I go ahead and nickname our Hariyama Cass. I have a theme for the names that I'll be using this run, see if you can guess where we're going with it. But for now, here comes the rival with his weak little Charmander. It doesn't even get off a shot though, as we land a 4-thrust Arm Thrust for the 1-shot win. Nice. Even weak damage builds up when we hit over and over again. Now our adventure can truly begin. So our first step is to catch up a Mankey west of Viridian City. Mankey learns Fury Swipes at level 16, which also fits the bill for this run with 18 base power. Plus, it only has 80% accuracy, making things more interesting. I catch up the Mankey and nickname it Java, continuing our naming theme. Now it's time to level. So we spend a wee bit of time in Viridian Forest before we make our way to Brock. We don't really need to spend a lot of time here though, as we get to Brock relatively quickly without a lot of over-leveling. Because we have our type advantage with Arm Thrust, we easily overpower him without issue. And just a little bit into the game, we've beaten Brock on our first attempt and secured the first badge. Though, side note, I've always wondered why rock is weak to fighting. I get that some martial art masters can break rocks with their hands, but the average person, if they punched something hard, would really find themselves in a lot of pain. But anywho, we can now head east in search of the water flowers of Cerulean City. But along the way through Mount Moon though, we level up a bit and get Fury Swipes on Mankey, which will give us another Mon with a weak move to use. We also decide to stop and catch a Zubat to add another member to our team with its Leech Life. Bug isn't very useful against much, but it might give us something decent against Sabrina later at least. I don't know. For now though, I nickname it Uzi and press on through the cave. After a bit of grinding up Uzi, we proceed to the obligatory moment where I take a fossil. I took the Dome Fossil, but ask me anyway, and we proceed into Cerulean City. I decide to take a crack at Misty just to see where we stand. Zubat is out first, but we swap quickly into Java to go for Fury Swipes. Her Staryu is used hardened though, which diminishes our power. Now on one hand that's good, as it makes the run that much harder for us, but on the other hand that's bad, as it makes the run that much harder for us. In any case, we swap into Cass, and thanks to our same type attack bonus Arm Thrust, we quickly dispatch the Staryu. Starmie is out next, and it's part Psychic, so I go for a cheeky play with Leech Life for the super effective bug damage. Ultimately though, we're outsped and one shot with Water Pulse. Cass is back out again, but now the part Psychic works against us as our Arm Thrust can't compete and we lose quickly due to major damage. The icing on the cake being that she closed out the fight with Rapid Spin, a memeably terrible move if there ever was one. We just don't deal enough damage quick enough. Maybe the rival fight will be better. Cass versus Pidgeotto out first, and Arm Thrust is doing work thanks to the fact that most birds are flying normal type, meaning neutral damage. Pidgeotto can do decent damage to us with its Stab Gust, though more importantly it can chunk our accuracy with Sand Attack. We get Sand Attacked once and miss 2 consecutive Arm Thrusts, a 100 accurate move normally. Eventually we bring down the Pidgeotto and swap off to Uzi the Zubat to deal with the Abra. Abra can't attack, so this is the perfect chance to get some free XP for Zubat. Leech Life will at least be somewhat tolerable when our attack stat nearly doubles once we evolve to Golbat, and we'll hopefully even get a Crobat out of this run at some point. Once the Abra is brought down, we leave in the Zubat against the Rattata for a bit, but after a few Tail Whips and nearly fainting to Quick Attack, we swap into Java the Mankey to finish off the Rattata. It's important that we don't let the Zubat faint as much as we can get away with. Zubat evolves into Golbat by level, but Golbat into Crobat via Friendship, and your Friendship takes a big hit when your Pokemon faints. Last out is the Charmander, but it really only hits for an Ember, and we bring it down with Fury Swipes to end the fight. Nice! While Misty was an obstacle we have yet to overcome, we've beaten the rival on our first go. We work our way up to local computer expert and man who prematurely played his polymerization magic card, Bill. Once we use our D-Fusion spell card on him though, we get the SS ticket for our trouble, and that brings us back to the Cerulean City where we make another attempt at Misty. And our first attempt back at Misty results in some terrible luck as we get confused on both Cass and Java and hit ourselves into defeat. I make a few more attempts at her, but it just keeps going about the same. Her Starmie hits really hard with its Water Pulse, and we don't do enough damage to deal with it. We would have Leech Life as a super effective move, but until we get to Golbat, I don't think we're going to do much with it. Arm Thrust also doesn't do much, and Starmie is part Psychic. So we're stuck here. We're just going to have to level a bit. Unfortunately, leveling here in Cerulean City isn't particularly great, as we don't have a lot of options, but we'll have to make do. So I spent a little bit of time here leveling up my 2 fighters, Cass and Java, to level 25. It's only 2 or 3 levels more than we are now, so it's not too far off. I also decided to get Uzi up to level 22 so that he evolves into Golbat. It's anyone's guess when we'll evolve into Crobat. That comes with Friendship, and there's no way to know what your Friendship level, so to speak, is. So it'll happen when it happens. In any case, once we've gotten the team where it needs to be, we try our hand at Misty again. I decide to keep Golbat in against her Staryu for a bit, willing it down with Leech Life. Eventually she gets to within healing range with a Super Potion, and it's time to make a discreet exit with Golbat before we get knocked out. Like I said before, getting knocked out wrecks the crap out of your Friendship, so we decide to move into Cass to finish off Staryu. Starmie's out next, and even though it's still resisting our Arm Thrusts, we land enough of them to bring down her Purple Starfish and seize the day. So with that, we could finally make our way out of Cerulean City with our second badge in tow. South of town, we run our way into Vermilion City and make a beeline for the SS Anne. Once we're there, anyone and everyone on this boat, with the exception of the rival, is an optional fight, so it's a great chance to level up our team with some good experience points. After clearing out anyone and everyone of value, we proceed to the next fight against our rival. Pidgeotto chunks our accuracy with a Sand Attack, but we bring it down with our Arm Thrusts. Kadabra is out next, so it's time for a swap to Golbat for super effective Leech Life to bring it down. Raticate's next, so we bring out Mankey for some work before going back to Hariyama to deal with the Charmeleon. After we've easily dispatched the rival fight, it's time for another rendezvous with the Sea Captain, where after a quick chiropractic session, we get the HM for Cut and can proceed to Lieutenant Surge's gym. Well, before we can get there though, we have to go get something for Cut later, so we pick up a Meowth north of town to use Cut moving forward, nickname it Snipticus the 46th, long way she cut, and proceed into Surge's gym. The trash can puzzle was a quick first attempt, and now it's on to Surge. We wind up paralyzed, which does slow us down, but it ultimately doesn't prove to be too terribly much of a roadblock as we Arm Thrust through his electrical rodents and his sentient Pokeball to secure a badge. But now before we can proceed on, we need to get the HM for Flash so that we can see where we're going through Rock Tunnel. Okay, Rock Tunnel doesn't require Flash, but I always like to get it because I don't like to feel around in the dark. So in order to do that, we have to go catch a few more Pokemon. To start off with, I catch a Pidgey for Fly later, nicknaming it Flapsity the 46th. Long may he fly. And after our rousing round of Catch 'em All by the Parker Brothers, we're ready to go through our trip through Rock Tunnel. Well, at least we would if I had actually caught something that could use Flash, so I go pick up a Voltorb for Flash, nickname it Flashelius the 46th, long may they shine, and now we can proceed into Rock Tunnel. Once we make our way into the tunnel, it's time for us to recruit the newest member of our team. I stop and catch a Geodude, which I nickname Flu. We'll have to level Geodude a fair bit, but once we reach level 31, we'll learn Rock Blast. This is going to be critical to get us past Lavender Town, but we'll go over that in a bit. While we're grinding through Rock Tunnel though, we come across a legitimate shiny Zubat. Hell to the yes. Takes a few Pokeballs to catch, but once we do, we nickname it Glamorious the 4th, long may he gleam, and proceed on. This is the 4th shiny we've caught on the channel, not counting the mandatory red Gyarados. Once I've got all 6 shinies to make a full team, I will do a special shiny video where we just use those. We skip over Lavender Tower though once we're outside the tunnel and make our way to Celadon to try our hand at Erica in the grass gym. Ultimately, Erica's bush is more tricky to navigate than I might have expected going in. Thanks to some potion stalling, she actually keeps Victory Bell around long enough to bring Primeape down. Graveler, being 4 times weak to grass, of course goes down to Giga Drain. Eventually, after a lot of battling and attrition, we're left with just Golbat to deal with the Vileplume. Leech Life will be regularly effective due to the grass poison typing, and this becomes a real nail biter. We're actually getting very lucky here thanks to our Paralysis not sticking. With Paralysis, it's a 50-50 chance that your attack actually goes through, and we're fortunately getting our attacks off. It's actually very lucky because by the time the fight ends, I don't think we could have actually won had we been hit one more time. With that, we barely win, but a win is a win, and we secure the 4th badge for our book. Our work in Celadon isn't done yet though, as we have to next clear out the Team Rocket hideout from under the local gambling establishment. There are no real obstacles here. Giovanni especially isn't a problem at all, as all 3 of his Pokemon are weak to our arm thrusts, and just like that, we've quickly thrust our way through Giovanni and his Pokemon to collect the Silph Scope for our trouble. Once we have the scope in our pocket, we set back to Lavender Tower to make our way up the Pokemon Tower. Along the way, Uzi the Golbat evolves into Crobat. I guess our friendship is high enough now, which is nice. I've actually never used a Crobat before, or had a Pokemon that evolves by friendship. It'd be nice if we could use good moves with it, but for the mandatory battles, Leech Life is all we're gonna have. Speaking of mandatory battles, it's time for our rival battle against Tower Tim. While Pidgeotto and Charmeleon aren't much of a match against Flu and his Rock Blast, Uzi the Crobat has Leech Life to deal with the Exeggutor and the Kadabra. Gyarados is all that's left, so it's back to the Graveler for Rock Blast against the partial flying type, for some reason. Once we've beaten the rival, it's time to climb the tower. Most of the trainers here aren't a problem, and only a few are mandatory. However, those mandatory trainers are the reason we picked up the Geodude in the first place. Arm Thrust is fighting and Fury Swipes is normal, so those won't hit the mandatory ghosts here. We also won't have much luck with Leech Life, as it will be double resisted on ghost types thanks to the fact that these Gen 1 ghosts are part poison for some reason. So Rock Blast it is then. Battling our way through the tower is uneventful, though it does bear the question, if I can't tackle a ghost, why can I throw a rock at a ghost? What makes the rock able to hit a ghost but not my fist? Alright then. Once we rescue Mr. Fuji Shoes, he gives us a flute for our trouble, and then we can now go get the next member of our team. However, in order to do that, I have to go get the Super Rod from the Fishing Guru south of Lavender Tower. This is why I needed to do Silphco first, so that we could wake up and low kick the Snorlax out of the way. Once we get the Super Rod, we make a trip over to Vermilion City, where we can fish up a Shelder 40% of the time. They're the only Pokemon that can learn Icicle Spear in Gen 3, and they only learn it in Fire Red. In Fire Red. In Fire Red. In Fire Red. And... oh, you've gotta be fucking kidding me. I've been in Leaf Green this entire time? Oh, man. I knew Shelder were only in Fire Red, and I thought I set this up in Fire Red. God damn it. Well, that's just terrible. Well, now we don't have an Ice-type move for this run. We're gonna have to rethink my team a bit. It's alright, folks, the run's not over. We didn't absolutely need the ice move Icicle Spear, though it would have helped a lot for Lance. Alright then, I guess we'll press on and add to our team later. So our first step of remedying this is to head down to Fuchsia City, more specifically the Safari Zone. I get right to it and catch a Parasect and nickname him Tut. Parasect will give us another Leech Life user, but will also equip Bullet Seed via TM, giving us 2 moves to choose from. I wanted to go with Exeggutor, but my fiance wanted me to give some love to Parasect, so we break out the TM and add him to the team. And unlike with Crobat, Parasect is part bug, so this Leech Life will be Stab. While down in Fuchsia City, I decide to try my hand at Koga in the Poison Gym, and we don't stand much of a chance. We're about on equal footing with him level-wise, and most of our moves are resisted, so it's not going very well. It didn't help that we lost our Primeape on a swap into a self-destruct from his coughing. Alright, we're gonna need to level up a bit before we beat Koga. We just don't stand a chance at this point. Fortunately, there's a lot of game we can do now though, so let's go try some of that and come back. So one thing that I think will be of help here moving forward is a ground type move. Fortunately, Cubone learns the move Bone Rush at level 41. So this is going to first require us to go catch one, and they're only available about 9% of the time in Lavender Tower, so once we find one, we catch it and it's at level 15. Whew boy, alright, we've got a lot of grinding ahead of us now. I go ahead and nickname it Spazzy. Now that I have the full team assembled, does anybody know what the theme of my names are with these all together on the screen? In any case, while we're leveling, I decide to attempt the Silphco building, and of course, Rival Fivel, as the venerable J-Rose would say. Unfortunately though, we just run out of luck against the Charizard, which exposes a rather significant issue I actually hadn't considered. Charizard might be a real problem. Cubone won't be able to hit it with ground moves on account of it being part flying type, Crobat's leech life will be double resisted, literally everything about Parasect is a bad idea against a Charizard, Hariyama will not only be weak to Charizard's flying moves, but Arm Thrust will be resisted. Our only real options here will be Primate with its Fury Swipes and Graveler for its Rock Blast. And while Graveler's Rock Blast is quad effective against Charizard, which is great, Graveler's special is also abysmal, meaning even a resisted Flamethrower will do a lot of damage to us. Since I can't get past him at this point, it's time to grind a bit and come back. I decide to go ahead and head east of town to grind a bit until we get Cubone to level 41 where it learns Bone Rush. And this will be great against Koga's Muck at least. I'm also finally able to let the Cubone evolve into Marowak since Marowak would have learned Bone Rush later. And now that we have Bone Rush, we try Koga again and we start having some decent luck this time, but unfortunately it ultimately doesn't pan out the way we want. I actually do manage to get down to just his Weezing, but all we wind up left with is our Marowak, who can't actually hit the Weezing because it has Levitate. I actually managed to whittle it down so low too, and the fact he wasn't healing shows that if we could have just hit it with anything else, it would have been gone. Alright, let's try this again. I think we can win this. And on our next trip out to the Poison Gym dance floor, we have another Tango with Koga. This time I start with Graveler with Rock Blast. It won't get the type advantage on offense, but it withstands the poison moves pretty well, and Rock Blast is a nice same type attack bonus move if nothing else. I easily dispatch the Coughing, and I swap to Marowak for Bone Rush against Muck, which is also a quick 2-shot. From there, the rest of Koga's team is not much of an obstacle. This time we somehow avoid any of Koga's team blowing themselves up, which is always nice and helpful to our mission. Though, side note, I really don't get why Bone Rush can't hit things with Levitate. I understand it's a ground move, and I understand the reason why ground moves are ineffective against flying types and Pokemon with Levitate, but moves like Bone Meringue, Bone Club, etc., those don't hit those flying types or Levitators. But all Bone Meringue is just throwing a bone in the air. There's plenty of moves like Rock Throw, which are just throwing rocks into the air. So a rock can be thrown in the air and hit something with Levitate, but not a bone. Oh well, I guess it is what it is. In any case, we managed to defeat Koga and secure our next badge, and crucially, this will now allow us to use Surf outside of battle, which I actually can't do until I get something for Surf. And while I do already have things that can learn it, I have a lineage to continue, so I go south of town here and fish up a Krabby for Surf, nickname her Aquades the 46th, long may she swim, and can now head to Cinnabar Island. I make a brief dance through the Pokemon Mansion to secure Blaine's lost key. Not only am I surprised he is always losing his key, but the fact that he's always losing it in this mansion every time. Someone buy this man a lanyard for his keys. And after getting the keys to the gym, we find he was already in there. Did he lock himself in? We actually start out okay with some type advantage thanks to Graveler and Marowak, but ultimately we wind up with just Parasect left against Arcanine. So not only is our bug type move Leech Life chunked with Intimidate and resisted by the fire type, but we're quad weak to anything resembling the definition of heat. So I guess even the mild sauce from Taco Bell is off the menu at this point. This doesn't go very well, let's try again. But sure enough, on our second attempt, we have a lot better luck. We keep Marowak out first due to the type advantage that Bone Rush affords us against fire. And again, side note guys, I understand that ground is strong to fire type because dirt and sand can smother fire, but I'm not really sure that bones can smother fire or put it out. So I really think that bone moves are mistyped and shouldn't be ground moves. I think better arguments could be made for normal or even ghost type. But in any case, Marowak makes quick work of Blaine's team. Well, at least the Growlithe, Ponyta, and even the Rapidash. Finally though, beaten and badly burned, Spazzy falls to the Arcanine. I swap into Graveler for continued type advantage, but even still our special is abysmal and we take big damage from Fire Blast. Fortunately though, we land enough Rock Blast to secure the win by the silt of our teeth and we move on from Blaine. And at this point, there really isn't a lot left to do. We just have 2 gyms left. We have Sabrina in Saffron City and Giovanni in Viridian City. And I actually can't do either of them yet. To get to Sabrina, we have to clear out the Silphco building, and to do that will actually involve us beating Giovanni in a pre-gym encounter, so let's take care of some business. I actually decide to stay on Cinnabar Island here for a bit and grind my team up to level 45 across the board. I do have the Versus Seeker, so I can rematch trainers in places like Cycling Road, but I like to mix in some wild grinding on really off chance of finding another shiny. Shinies are something like a 1 in 8,000 chance, but I think it would really be awesome to nab 2 shinies in a single video. Shiny-less grinding aside though, once we reach level 45 across the board, I head for Rival Fivel again in the Silphco building. I move Flu out to the front for the type advantage against Pidgeot, and while it gets off a touch of damage and a Feather Dance, we bring it down with Rock Blast quick enough. I do go ahead and leave Flu in against the Exeggutor for the raw power of Rock Blast, and we even take some confusion damage and get paralyzed, but even still Rock beats Egg and it's on to Alakazam. I swapped a Tut for this one for Leech Life type advantage, and boy does it work as we two-shot the Alakazam with Leech Life. I'm sure it helps that Bug is physical and Alakazam is weak physically, but that was still pretty cool to see Parasect actually do something. Charizard is out next, so it's back to Flu, and despite our paralysis, the fact that we have low special, Charizard is quad weak to Rock, so our Rock Blast is enough to bring it down, though unfortunately our Flu does die to a dose of Oseltamivir. Tamiflu. Future Sight. With no clear type advantages left to go to, I bring out Primate for some Fury Swipe action against the Gyarados that's out last. And fortunately for us, it just keeps going for Twister and we bring it down to end the fight. And with that, Rival Fivel is Rival Dunzo. Yeah, okay, J-Rose got the better half of that nickname. And we proceed on to the Giovanni fight. Flu is out first again, namely because I forgot to swap my party around, but after a weak Horn attack we have no trouble dispatching the Nidorino with Rock Blast. Nidoqueen is out next and I swapped to Spazzy for a little Bone Rush on the Queen, and bring her down fast enough. Kangaskhan is next, so it's out to cast for a bit of arm thrust action to bring down Kangaroo Jack, and finally Rhyhorn is last, and while I meant to swap to Tut for quad effective Bullet Seed damage, I ended up staying in with cast, so I have to bring down the Rhyhorn with only regular super effective arm thrust damage, securing the win. Now that I've run Team Rocket out of dodge, I get the Master Ball from Elon Musk and continue to Sabrina the Psychic Gym. But before I do that, I stop and pick up this free Lapras for Strength later, nicknaming it Bisepticus the 46th, long may she live, and then proceed to the gym. The Psychic Gym here is Tut's time to shine, as just about everything is either weak to Bullet Seed or Leech Life, so I clear out some trainers and then proceed to Sabrina herself. Kadabra's out first and it outspeeds to put up Reflect, which will chunk our Leech Life's effectiveness. I go for another, but she sees it coming and swaps into Venomoth. I swap into Flu for Rock effectiveness and bring it down. She then goes for Alakazam, so I go get Uzi and his own Leech Life into the fight a bit and bring it down. Kadabra's out again, but this time we swap to Spazzy and bring it down with Bone Rush. Finally, Mr. Mime is out, but goes down simple enough to more Bone Rush. That'll be our 7th badge, and we can now move to Viridian City for the final gym match. Once at Viridian City, we go right for the gym, where Giovanni sends out a Rhyhorn first, so Tut is out to deal with it with quad-effective Bullet Seed. A second Rhyhorn is out next, so I give it another taste of Bullet Seed action too. Gotta like that Parasect is finally putting in some work here towards the end of the run. Maybe we'll get some more in as we go through the Elite Four too. To be honest, from here, Giovanni really isn't too difficult. We've got some good type advantage on our team here for the last gym, and honestly Spazzy puts in some good work with Bone Rush, which ultimately secures our win for the final badge. It was definitely worth leveling him up to get that, but we'll have to see if our luck continues. So with all 8 badges, it's time to head on to the Elite Four. Or at least it would be if we didn't have one last rival fight ahead of us. Unfortunately, we don't really have a lot of luck here. Our levels are about the same as our rival Tim's, and he doesn't have a lot of trouble taking us down. Unfortunate that Alakazam got a timely critical hit with its Psychic, and yeah, we just don't have enough luck on our side with our low power moves. I try him a few times, but the results always end up about the same. We're gonna need more levels to deal with him. So I go spend a bunch of time on Pokemon Mansion again, bringing my team up to level 50 across the board. Flu versus Pidgeot to start us off, and while we miss our first Rock Blast, we get our second to bring down the Pidgeot, who could only use Wing Attack. Exeggutor is out next, so it's time for Tut to come in and use quad-effective Leech Life to bring it down. Charizard is next, so it's back to Flu the Graveler for more quad-effective Rock Blast to bring it down. Gyarados is next, and ultimately Graveler goes down to a Hydro Pump. I swap to Jay for the Primate, but our Fury Swipes don't get us incredibly far, so we swap back to Tut for Bullet Seed, and it fortunately just goes for Twister over and over again. With that, we're able to finish it off with Bullet Seed. Rhyhorn is out, but quad-effective Bullet Seeds bring it down quick enough. Last out is the Alakazam, but for some reason it doesn't choose to go for Psychic very much, it just keeps trying for Future Sight, which allows us to bring it down with Leech Life once it comes off disabled. With the rival beaten, we can proceed through Victory Road and make our way to the Elite Four. Ice Trainer Lorelei is up first, and while we do slightly outlevel her team, we just don't have a lot of success here. In fact, Lorelei's Slowbro pretty much decimates our entire team. I do manage to make our way to the Cloister a couple of times, but we just don't have what it takes. We're gonna need to level the team some more. And after spending a couple hours grinding our entire team up to level 60, we try again. Cass is out to deal with the Dugong first, and we bring it down quickly with super effective arm thrusts. Slowbro is next, and here's where the real delay hits. I swapped a Tut to try and whittle it down with Leech Lives, but it's not going well. Slowbro is a beast. Eventually I get knocked out and I have to swap to Java to try and deal with some neutral Fury Swipe damage, and it starts going well, but mostly because Slowbro just keeps trying to put us to sleep with Yawn, but our Vital Spirit keeps us awake. Eventually I succumb to a critical Surf, and Cass is back out to finish the fight. Jinx is up next, but a 5-hit arm thrust is enough to knock her out without giving her a chance to attack. Cloister is out next, and here in Gen 3 it has the 4th highest defense stat of all Pokemon available. And even to this day in the current Gen 8, it's still in the top 9. But all we can do is use our physical arm thrusts. Fortunately, there's Stab on Hariyama and super effective, so we do manage to only let Cloister get off of spikes and a couple rounds of Protect before bringing it down. Lapras is last, and it gets off a couple of Surfs, but I bring it down with more arm thrusts to secure our first win at Elite Four. Fighting Trainer Bruno is next, and he leads with an Onix, so we move Tut the Parasect out to the front to immediately bring it down with a quad-effective Bullet Seed. From there, things are a bit dicier. I swapped to Spazzy the Marowak to deal with the Hitmonchan surprisingly well. Upon closer inspection, it actually doesn't have any of the elemental punches here, ultimately sticking around to get some damage in on the Hitmonlee before being brought down. From there I bring out Java the Primate for Fury Swipes, but ultimately the real wall is Machamp. Even Hariyama, despite leftovers, can't stand up to the boosted damage of Cross Chop. That is a devastating move when powered up, and it brings us down to Uzi the Crobat. I start whittling the Machamp down with a weak Leech Life before being brought down with Rock Throws. With only 2 Mons left, we bring out the Parasect once again, and we finish the fight with Bullet Seed. Finally, all that's left is Onyx, but another quad-affected Bullet Seed is all we need to secure the win, and we're halfway through the Elite Four. Next up is old Ghost Biddy Agatha, and we don't really have anything super effective to deal with ghosts. It's the same problem we had in Lavender Tower, but that's what Flew the Graveler is for. Gengar is out first and sets up a double team, but not only does Rock Blast miraculously land, it lands for a 5-hit hit and brings down the Gengar immediately. Arbok is next on the docket, so I swap over to Spazzy, who brings it down quick enough with a couple of super effective Bone Rushes, only taking a Screech in the process. Golbat is up now, so it's back to Flew, and despite being confused and hit with the Bite, breaks through enough confusions to Rock Blast down the Golbat. Haunter is up, and we snap out of confusion, hit a Rock Blast, take a mean look, and now we're stuck here, so we go for another Rock Blast, and fortune is on our side as we land enough hits to bring down Haunter. We're sitting pretty good here as last out is her Gengar, which gets off a Shadow Ball, which is still physical in this gen, so we tank it pretty well, and we get off a multi-hit Rock Blast we need to secure the 3rd win against Agatha on just our first try. Dragon Trainer Lance is out next, and despite the smooth sailing up to this point, I actually don't have the luck I need here to deal with Lance. This is exactly why I wanted a Shelder for the run, because it was the only Pokemon in Fire Red that can learn Icicle Spear. But because I played this in the wrong game, Leaf Green, I may have doomed us all. I managed to make solid inroads against his team, but I just take too much damage along the way. Ultimately, we run out of moves to use against his final Dragonite, and we just have to restart the fight and try again. Ultimately, many tries later, I get a run and it starts to come together. It's Flew versus Gyarados first, thanks to its flying type, again, why, and our Rock Blasts are enough to bring down the Gyarados, though we take some big damage in the process. Dragonair is up next, so we swap into Spazzy for some Bone Rush action. We can bring down the Dragonair with a 5-shot rush, or some combination of 5 hits from multiple ones, which we see in action here as we're able to bring down both of Lance's Dragonairs without too much hassle. Dragonite is up next, so we swap back to Flew the Graveler, who I've put a Quick Claw on, and we get the 20% activation to go first. Our Rock Blast hits, nearly one-shotting Dragonite with a 4-blast hit. If we could have gotten a 5-shot hit, it would have knocked it out. But while it brings us down low, we knocked it into berry range, so Lance doesn't actually use a full restore on it, and we swap to Cast to Arm Thrust his Dragonite down. Aerodactyl is all that's left, and we hit hard, but it hits hard with Wing Attack and ultimately brings down Hariyama. Java the Primate is out, and we bring the Aerodactyl down low and just barely secure the win with our Fury Swipes. We landed just enough times against his Rock Bird to secure the win. With that, we're going to heal up, revive our team, top off our moves, and make a move at Tim the Champion. And I run into a surprising bit of a wall against Tim. While we weren't having a whole lot of issues with his Exeggutor and his Kadabra earlier in the run, Alakazam and Exeggutor now are posing a huge obstacle to beat. We make a few decent inroads about half the time, and I even managed to get to his last Gyarados once, so I'm sure that this is possible where we are now. I'm just going to need to get things to line up exactly the way we need them. So before we go on, I just want you to watch this bit right here for a second. Watch this battle of attrition against this damn Exeggutor. This is going to be sped up for you guys in editing, but look at what I have to deal with here. Tim keeps full restoring it, despite the fact it's clearly running out of power points on its moves. We lost our 2 Leech Life users already thanks to Sleep Powder and Egg Bomb, so we just have to whittle it down before he finally beats us. We do have what it takes to beat Tim, we're just getting terrible sleep luck against Exeggutor. This is ridiculous. Alright, let's dump a Chesto Berry on everyone and see what we can do. So after at least an hour of attempts, I finally get a run that starts to look promising. Pidgeotto is out first and hits a Sand Attack on Graveler, but we manage to land a 2-hit Rock Blast. We set up to use another, but Tim swaps in Rhydon to take those hits. I swap in Spazzy, who takes a couple of hits from Rhydon and misses his first Bone Rush, but his second lands for good damage. At this point though, Tim goes for a full restore. Another missed Bone Rush later, and we go down to Earthquake, so out comes Tut, who lands a quad-effective 5-hit Bullet Seed for the knockout. Tim goes back to Pidgeot, and I go back into Flew, and once we get hit with a Feather Dance, we're nearly able to bring down the Pidgeot, but not quite. Our Quick Claw then activates though on the next turn, which allows us to land another hit and finish off the bird. Exeggutor is next, so I swap back to Tut to land a quad-effective Leech Life for decent damage. I get hit with Sleep Powder, but wake up thanks to the Chesto Berry and land another Leech Life. Another Sleep Powder later and we're asleep again, taking damage from Egg Bomb, but we wake up on the second turn and bring down Exeggutor with another Leech Life. Tim calls on Charizard, so it's back out to Flew, and we take big damage from a not very effective Fire Blast, but we hit back with our own blast, a quad effective Rock one to bring down Charizard. Charizard. Gyarados is next up, so we swap into Java really just to absorb the Intimidate debuff and to try and do a little damage while we're there. I get a couple of Fury swipes off as Gyarados goes for Thrash, which eventually brings down Java, but we brought it halfway down in the process. We swap back to Graveler for Rock Smash type advantage, and by the grace of Algorithm, our Quick Claw activates, and we land our Rock Blast for a 3-shot to bring the Gyarados down once and for all. All that's left now though is Alakazam, so I swap to Tut for super effective Leech Life damage, but we wind up behind a Reflect which chunks physical damage, of which all bug moves are in Gen 3, and we wind up going down to Psychic damage from Alakazam. Uzi the Crobat is out with its own Leech Life, but thanks to an Alakazam recover, we wind up netting basically no damage to the Alakazam before going down to Future Sight and a Psychic. Cass comes out and takes massive damage from a Psychic before whittling down the Alakazam, only to watch it be undone with another full restore. Cass goes down swinging though, and Jet just leaves Flu with less than 1/3 of health to deal with an Alakazam at about 60%. Fortunately, I'm pretty sure our Quick Claw activated here and we moved first, landing not only a Rock Blast, but a critical hit to boot to bring the Alakazam down and win the fight. And boom, there it is. We beat Tim, we become the champion, we get our team into the Hall of Fame, and the credits roll. And with that, folks, we've just beaten Pokemon Leaf Green with only moves of 25 base power or less. And oh my god, that was frustrating at times. We probably could have had a better time of things if I had actually set this up in Fire Red like I wanted to, but we still pulled through. Using only the weakest moves possible was really a struggle. Not only did we have to inflict a lot of damage, we had to hope our moves actually landed enough turns to do the damage we needed. Plus, I wasn't cheesing this up either by using moves like Spore, which technically don't have a base power, so the argument could be made that they would have been fine to use. I just did this with actual damage dealing attacks though. This took a while to put together, I hope you all enjoyed. I'm not sure what the next Pokemon run is going to be, but feel free to leave your suggestions in the comments below, or join up in the Bardbreaker Discord server at the link down in the description to join me and your fellow Pokefans from the audience and talk me there. I'm not sure what my next Pokemon run is going to be though, but feel free to leave your suggestions in the comments below, or join up the Bardbreaker Discord server to join me and your fellow Pokefans from the audience and talk to me there. Until next video guys, like, comment, and subscribe, and go catch 'em all.